I used to choose men whose behavior over time became predictable, just in ways that were unsafe, unsupportive, and very often unkind. I could predict, again, over time, the gaslighting. I could predict the emotional punishment. In one relationship, it became physical punishment. And that's exactly why I left, or why I was incredibly relieved when they left. Now, 2 years ago, a TikTok video went absolutely viral. In fact, it exploded, asking women whether they'd rather be alone in the woods with a man or with a bear. 7 out of 8 women chose the bear. Hundreds of thousands of women chose the bear. And they explained why. They explained what their reasoning was. Now, a lot of men went ballistic over this, which kind of ironically proved the women's point. And a few men understood immediately and called out their lack of empathy. So here we are in 2026, 2 years later, and the real question isn't, would you choose the bear? Has that changed at all in the last 2 years? It's, what have we learned about emotional safety and feeling safe and supported in a relationship? The emotional truth, well, it's all about predictability versus safety. Women didn't choose the bear because it was safe. A bear can be pretty unpredictable in a wild animal sort of way. Many of us, however, spent years with men who were unpredictable in a personal, emotional way. Predictable harm is still harm. Predictability isn't the same as safety. Some men are predictable in their anger, their dismissiveness, their blame, and the way that they punish the women in their lives, you know. And I think I was in all those kinds of relationships over the years. And then, I stayed single for quite a while in my mid to late 30s. And then I met Ernie, who was, emotionally supportive and kind and caring consistently all the time, right? And, what it really boils down to is that a lot of women simply didn't see the patterns. They didn't necessarily see the predictable harm that could occur because we're conditioned to believe in a guy's potential. We're conditioned to believe in our own potential. Potential is kind of exciting and fun and promising in a way. We're taught to hope, to wait, to invest our time and effort. But the problem is that hope isn't a strategy at all. And if he isn't kind, supportive, and caring in the early days of your dating or getting together, it's not that he's hiding that until, later when he gets to know you better. It's that it simply doesn't exist. You want to be with the kind of guy who feels like he is so lucky to have you in his life that he doesn't want to blow it. He wants to make sure that you're around. And so he's going to treat you in the best way that he possibly can, And that's how I felt from the day that I met Ernie, not that he was going around saying, I love you, and we were having, fabulous lovemaking and all this kind of stuff, like right off the bat, all those years ago, 28 years ago. But that I felt that supportiveness, that kindness, that caring, that respect right off the bat, because if you don't feel it, if you don't get it at first, and also you need to be the kind of woman who's willing to receive that for yourself. who feels like you deserve that, right? I left because I got to a place where I could predict that unsafe, unsupportive, unkind behavior. I could predict when the gaslighting was going to come. And it was like, man, I am changing the game up. I am not dealing with this anymore. And I also was the kind of person that was like, don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out, right? I didn't want to keep being a victim of a pattern that I could see coming. Once I understood emotional adulthood, I stopped confusing familiarity with safety. Somebody who's familiar is not necessarily safe, is not necessarily interested in what's best for you. It's just familiar. You kind of know what's coming. And that's when everything changed, all right? That's when I finally was willing to receive and accept the kind of love that we all need and want, right? So, in closing, women didn't choose the bear, really. I mean, again, a bear can be pretty unpredictable in a wild animal kind of way. They chose an absence of emotional punishment. So the last 2 years taught us kind of about emotional safety. And once you see that, you can't ever unsee it. This is Denise Michaels, What I Wish I Knew at 30. Please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks. Bye-bye.